Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to another video in which we take a deep dive into another really awesome family member of the TeejLab family, Davis Goulet. So Davis, welcome. How are you doing today?
Awesome, awesome. Pretty good, pretty good. It's been quite a while since we last talked, a couple of
Yeah,
years.
I think last year, like more than a year. Yeah, it's
More than a year. More
yeah,
last time was before I moved down to Victoria.
yeah,
Prince George. So before COVID, different world.
different world, man. 100%. I really like this world, though. Remote work, hybrid. No need to
Mhm,
go to
mhm.
office every day, just chilling, especially
Definitely
no
different.
traffic. Yeah. That's awesome to hear. So, I'm just going to want my audience to take a deep dive into your brain, like learn because you are like one of the finest talent we have in our family, and so I'm very excited about this one. So we'll start from the very beginning of the journey, right? Can you tell us like when you started interacting with TeejLab and what was your role?
Sure, sure. So I kind of started with TeejLab back in 2018, which feels like a long time ago, but also not very long at all. So I was in my third year of university at this point, and one of my professors recommended me this fellowship that TeejLab was doing with the university called I can't remember the name of it at this point, the
I,
Fellowship of,
yeah, I think I also did that. It's called Research Technology Fellowship, if I'm not wrong.
yes, that's the one. I always
Yeah.
forget the resource word in that. Yes. So one of my professors recommended me this fellowship, and I applied to it,
Mhm.
and then got accepted for it.
That's
So I
awesome.
pretty much worked with TJ Lab over the course of 2018, predominantly more so towards the summer as a more kind of like an internship experience. But like it
I
started more so in like the early starts of January, just getting familiar with like what they're doing, and some of like the background behind what the company does, since it's very much focused on like the API. So kind of getting familiar with that and the design of it, how they work, and then kind of getting familiar with also like the platform.
mhm.
Because back then, this was just they were just kind of starting off at the company. It was all
Yeah,
it was at that point just kind of a few engineers and Baljeet leading it. So I kind of really got in at the start of it.
that's awesome. So you were like one of the first members of the TeejLab family, and I'm
Yep,
probably like the second, third generation after that.
yep, yep.
That's awesome to hear. So, with this, everything was starting up, right? What was your level of engagement with these TeejLab projects during that time?
So at the start of it, it was a lot more just getting familiar with everything. So I had pretty much like weekly meetings with like Puneeth, who's the main engineer at that time, and Baljeet, just to get familiarized. And then towards like more of like the later part of spring and into summer, that's when I got more hands-on with kind of actually developing. And the main thing I worked on was like the discovery scanner tool, and kind of building out the GUI side and the command line interface for that.
I see. So you mentioned the Discovery Scanner tool and its CLI. Can you tell us more, like go a bit more specific about this engagement and this project?
Sure. So this was kind of like one of the main tools that they were kind of building out at the start, with the goal of kind of helping companies and organizations discover what APIs are actually using in their source code, and kind of yeah, added those into like their account in the web portal themselves, so that you can get your more information on what these APIs are actually doing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I just remember that tool because I little bit also worked during my internship on that tool, but more like on the network scanner part, not the project scanner, the
Yeah.
source code thing. But I remember using the source code one, and it blew my mind how intelligent it was because I scanned like one of my favorite open source project, and I was just blown away like how many web APIs are being used inside like one project. And it wasn't
Yeah.
like that big of project. So it's amazing. You have built something really amazing. Need to learn
Yeah.
more.
There's quite a few. You don't realize how ubiquitous they are.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like such a big, like, and that was, I think, for me, even like that was my starting of like, okay, APIs it was my eureka moment, I will say, in the API economy, and like API, how big this digital economy of API is and how big this community is. Because like you won't realize so many APIs, so many different APIs.
Yeah.
Some of them even you will look you and go to the interface and say, "Oh, what is this API doing?" Like it's amazing. That's great work. So, so this was like during 2018, like you worked basically, you started learning about TeejLab in January and like worked during the whole summer. So during this whole, engagement and during this whole internship, what were the values you learned in terms of training or mentorship or like, in these domains in terms of leadership itself? What were the values you learned during this whole internship experience of yours?
So I kind of really got two sides of it because they were really starting out at the time. So from one side, just kind of figuring out as the company's figuring out what direction they want to go in, how they want to take the products. So I really got to like exposure from like Baljeet from that side of the company. And then like I worked quite a bit with Puneet at the time, and as he was like the lead developer, and kind of like figuring out like what architectural decisions he was making to develop this, so that way it could actually like grow in the future and be capable of um, being more than what they just want to use it for now. So those are kind of the two main ones.
That's awesome. Yeah, architecture is big, especially in like a university, because I know this like from my experience, we don't talk much about architecture. We do have like couple of courses about distributed programming, concurrency, multi-threading, those stuff, but seeing that in real life is just another level. It's
Yeah,
like it's like watching Star Wars and being inside Star Wars.
yeah. It's a very different than kind of the education I was having before. It was a lot more hands-on, a lot more practical, and really cool that way. But it's also had still like a lot of theory behind it and like
Yeah.
how the APIs are working. How do you develop a platform that's capable of being it's really capable of handling such a variety because there's not really like there's a standard API format, but it's also kind of like very general and like what type of APIs can be created from it.
Yeah.
So you don't want to like lock yourself into a corner when you're designing a platform like that.
Yeah, you have to be robust. You have to be general enough to so that everybody from different domains can come in and work and use it.
Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. So, with Puneet, Valjit, like, and other team members, how was your experience working with the TeejLab staff and like any specific incident that was like, this is so memorable. I love being part of this TeejLab family.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So I had a really good experience just working with like Puneeth and really understanding like the architectural decisions behind stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like the main memorable moment I have in my mind is like when I was first kind of getting on board into the company.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to Vancouver and I met with Baljit and like the first time seeing the office and that overlooks the mountains, and just kind of like really sitting down and having a discussion with him around like what the company is and how it works. So it just was a really good experience and kind of understanding like how does technology actually work in like in a corporate world.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah, I remember going to the office. I was like, this is the coolest place to have an office at. Like you can just see everything. No like no traffic or like any of those horns having around. Just pure
Yep.
silence and beautiful scenery. You can just take a breath.
Mhm.
Amazing. So and talking about the staff and we talked about like couple of projects. Like overall, like how was your like experience, right? Like working because in TeejLab we have a whole API lifecycle manager, right? We have so many aspects we are covering from security to discovery, scanning, right? And like even anything you can think about like health checks and location. So out of all these, like what was your experience working with the TeejLab technology and all these apps we have and any specific wow moment or eureka moment for you?
Sure. So the one moment that really stands out in my mind that I remember thinking back to is I didn't realize like the variety of APIs that were out there. And the
Hmm.
one that still stands out to me is like the Washington State Department of Transportation have an API. And that
Yeah.
just kind of like amazed me that like something like an entity like that, they're even part of like this API world and like what data they're providing. So that was like the one thing that really stuck out to me is just like a there's a lot behind this. It's not just us interacting with um like your general request, but like all entities are starting to move into this space. And just like what's out there, you really don't know like the breadth and variety that you can get and like what APIs are even available.
That's amazing. Yeah, like for me too, I was like blown away with some of the APIs. Like specifically for me, the one that blew me away, and I loved that I was able to find it was British Columbia's like sites API, in which there was like you can get all the recreational sites. And the best part about that API was I was able to actually use it in the following semester and like create a project for my geography class, in
Yeah.
which what I did was like find all the great recreational places, because I wasn't much of a traveling guy, but I
Mhm.
did hike a couple of times during that summer. I was like, okay, next summer I need to find as many hiking spots as I want. So I used this API, took help from TeejLab API manager, and created this like a whole map with all the best places to go, with least crowded and best places within Prince George or near Prince George. So
Yeah.
I can 100% understand that. That's awesome.
Mhm.
And so like your whole experience have been great, right? Like with the mentorship from Baljeet, Puneet, right? Like able to touch different technologies and use it. Um, so any like words of wisdom, like what would you like to tell these prospect students or interns like you and me, or employees, we have been that too, that would be interacting with Teach Lab in coming future?
I think the biggest thing is just not be afraid to like get your hands dirty into the products. Like there's such a breadth in like what you can do there because there's a lot of different products and it's still kind of a younger company where you have a lot of opportunities to really kind of like expand what they have there. You're not like when you're at like a larger company, you can kind of be boxed in like what you can actually change. But you don't really get that when you're at something like TJ Lab.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Even I remember, like, I was during my internship, I was able to like go in security and also do some development on the side and like just do some research, which I really like in cybersecurity. So, like, having those match of domains and getting mentorship specifically from Baljeet was beautiful, and from the whole staff, the support I got. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you so much, Davis. It was nice having you. And probably I'll bug you again as soon as we start getting more messages in the comment about you and things we want to ask more.
yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right,
See ya.
bye.